Hey, good morning, guys. Today we're going to do a service on a now infamous, internationally known 2018 Newmar London Aire that we've seen on the channel before. The owners reached out to me because they were interested in getting their Oasis hydronic heater serviced for the fluid itself. Now, most people call it antifreeze, but I guess technically it's a transfer fluid. Now, they haven't had it serviced since they bought it a few years ago. And even though this stuff comes in two flavors, usually lime green or yellow, or cherry red or pink, it's not the same winterization fluid that you would use to winterize an RV. It's a non-toxic boiler antifreeze. Both the flavors are interchangeable. The problem is if you mix the yellow with the red or the red with the yellow, it turns brown and it's hard to know if it's dirty or if it's at the end of its life. Now, this is full strength stuff, so it already has the mixture built into it, so I don't have to add water to it. They do make little quart-sized jugs where you would add water to them if you wanted to. It makes it easier to ship. Now, if you're going to ask me how often should the fluid be replaced and flushed, I would always revert back to the manual, because the factories tend to like to blame the owners for neglect on their boilers or hydronic heaters, but I can also tell you I've seen coaches that are over 15 years old have the original fluid in them still. So how vital it is, I couldn't really say. The manufacturers will say their ability to transfer heat becomes less and less. Use a hydrometer to check the performance of the fluid itself, because over time people do start adding more and more water, and so it could get more and more dilute. But I'm very skeptical of those claims. But the owners of this 2018 Newmar London Aire just replaced all three water pumps or circulation pumps that are in the Oasis system, and they had replaced another one last year, so they're a little concerned that maybe there's a problem with the fluid, and they had me take a look at it, and I didn't see any debris in the system, but they don't want to be better safe than sorry, so we're going to go ahead and replace all the fluid in this Oasis hydronic heating system. Now, for me, it's not a very common service that I offer, but it's also not something I see online very easy. So I thought I would take everybody through the process. It can be very simple and very fast, but we do want to make sure that we don't get air stuck in the system, so there is a process you have to go through so that we don't burn out the pumps. All right, so what is an Oasis hydronic system if you don't have one? Here's the Oasis. It burns diesel fuel to warm up that transfer fluid that we just saw. It gets pumped around to make domestic hot water and heat at exchangers or little radiators in different zones inside the RV in the living area. So it's both your water heater and your furnace. Now, unlike an AquaHot or a HydroHot, it's not all self-contained in this box right here. There is a tank that will heat up the transfer fluid, but it gets pumped to another distribution module right here, where behind here we can see the circulation pumps that have just been replaced. So these are three brand new ones. They're the new style ones, and they want to make sure that there's not a problem with the transfer fluid making those go bad. So this is the area where we're going to be pretty personal for the next few hours or so as I do this. Take a look at this cover. We have these two valves right here with a 90-degree handle on it. You have a filling inlet and a filling outlet. So that's going to be the drain. That's how we're going to fill it. This just has a 1/2-inch mill pipe thread cap on it. It's got some pipe dope on it. We'll need to take both those off and hook up some hoses. Now, I'll try to lighten this up so we can see everything going on here. Generally, what you could do, because I am cheap, you could get a garden hose adapter with a 1/2-inch metal pipe thread on it. Something like that. Let's see the part number there. You could just swivel that on. Now you could hook up an old garden hose or city water hose that you don't want, but you have to have one for each side. But it'll be pretty boring because we won't be able to see the fluid moving on that. I've decided to be a little bit extra and used a barb fitting with a 1/2-inch pipe thread on it that we can hook up some clear 1/2-inch vinyl hose to very easily. Probably won't even need a hose clamp, but it is important that we don't leak air into the system as we're doing this. Don't want to trap any air in the system. So I'm just going to go ahead and take that cap off. Now, since we're going to be draining the entire system, this could be upwards of 15 gallons of transfer fluid or antifreeze, because those one zone, there's two loops up here that go up into the bedroom and up into the salon to a lot of different heat exchangers, and they're literally just that. They're just loops going through each exchange and then back down again. So we need to drain all those lines out. Go ahead and also take the radiator cap loose here. Oh yeah, this is a pressurized vessel, so if the Oasis is hot, don't take this cap off, okay? It could be pressurized, so wait until the system's cooled down. Alright, so here's the setup. We got this hose right here hooked up to my pump, and this hose is just going to be allowing extra drainage if we need to. Now there are check valves right here on the system, so we can't drain it out off of this side. Over here is going to be the drain side, and that's those red lines right there would go over to the Aqua or the Oasis system right there, and I already have the radiator cap off. So what I'm going to do is now, you can use a normal 1/2-inch swivel nut with a SureFlow water pump. So a standard swivel nut that you'd see on most RV faucet connections to the SureFlow pump, you could use that too. But I'm not going to use that. I'm just going to use a drill water pump right here. So we have in and out. And so I'm just going to use a drill. And now this chamber in the Oasis is basically drained out. Okay. It's empty. All right, now with basically the reservoir tank or the heating jacket drained at that point, I'm going to flip those hoses. So I've got those flipped now. I can turn the valves back open again. So the old fluid's going to get pumped out as the new fluid gets pumped in. So now I just have to fill this thing up. It's most important that we keep the hose underneath the fluid because we don't want to introduce air into the system. It's nice to have clear containers. Just visually we can see the fluids that are coming out. Alright, so this is the new fresh stuff. This is the old stuff. Like I said, it's brown, but just because the pink and the yellow likely got mixed. What I will also do, I've made a few marks here. I'm going to make a mark on the outside of the container so I can see that I am actually pumping stuff in. And so as the old stuff comes out, it should fill this up. Once I start getting new stuff coming out right here, I'll move that hose into the new container, keeping this filled the entire time because I don't want to introduce air into the system. We're going to go ahead and fill the Oasis back up again with some fresh stuff. Just like that. Then we'll put the cap back on. Okay, let's go to the other side. We'll just start to drill that way. And you can see it's pumping out now. It's the gross stuff still. Like I said, it's very important that we keep that inlet under the liquid. We don't want to introduce any air to the system. There's a good chance we won't get every bit of the old stuff out. It might tinge it a little bit, but we're doing a pretty good job of getting the old stuff out as we're putting new stuff in. So we look down right there, I've already pumped in about 1.5 gallons and pumped out about 1.5 gallons. So once this fills up, I will have to dump that as I add more transfer fluid to here. But I'll keep pumping away. So I stop right here. You can still see it's the old coolant or transfer fluid that's in there. Still got the nice bright green lime stuff. We're now below my bottom mark. So in just a little bit, I want to start adding more coolant or new stuff into here. So it is important to have a lot on hand. Like I said, it's better to probably get the smaller quart containers and just fill it with water rather than lugging around gallon jugs. Rumor has it takes about 8 to 15 gallons on these systems. So 15 is probably more than you need, and 8 is probably not nearly enough. So I would start with 10, at least having 10 on hand, but having 15 on hand is probably the best bet. I think I actually might be getting pretty close to being done with transferring. I'll add one more. Remember, whatever I don't use, I just put back in these bottles, and we'll have fresh fluid still anyways. But we just don't want to introduce air into the system. So now it looks like I have clean coolant on this side now. Like I said, there might still be a little bit of the old stuff in there. But now I just have to put it in here. I just run a little bit through here. You can see it's not quite as clean as I thought it was, so we'll just put it back into this bucket over here, and we'll keep pumping it in. Now, even though this transfer fluid is non-toxic, in case it ever got mixed into the domestic water, don't drink it, and you will have to dispose of it in a responsible manner as far as the old stuff goes. It doesn't taste good either. I've had enough of this stuff in my mouth to know, so you don't even have to ask me how I know that. So I'm just gonna keep pumping. Now the nice thing about when it's nice yellow like this, you can actually see when it does change color, or if it has any contaminants in it. Whereas when it's a brown color like this, it's definitely difficult to see if there's any contaminants. Any of the plastic you might see floating on top, that came from the drill pump. It was brand new, so that's not part of it. That's why it's nice to see when it's running clean. So we got an air pocket out right there. It's definitely not the same brightness as what we're putting in yet. So if I were to compare that, sure looks like the same color now. They said we won't ever get 100% all of it out, even if you were to flush it with water first. There would still be a little bit left in there. So now all I'm going to do is put it in our supply over here. And I'm going to hold it down underneath. And we're going to run it and try to make sure there's no bubbles that come out of it. Just want to make sure that any air that comes out isn't getting sucked in. There's still a little bit of a tinge, but not too bad, all things considered. I'm not seeing any bubbles coming out, so we're doing really well on that too. So now what we need to do while we're running the pump, the drill pump right there, we do need to turn on the bypass pump. Now there's a switch on top of this control box right there that will turn the pumps on, but I don't want to turn those on until I have that pump down there running. So I'll be doing it from the basement. And what that switch is going to do is turn on these two pumps right there. Those are the circulation pumps. And it'll help bleed the system out too. Really, the only important thing is that we don't introduce air into the system at this point. And with that clear line, we can see if air is getting in or if we're purging any out. Go ahead. So those pumps are on. Running, running. See a bubble coming out over it. Right there. So all we're really doing is pumping in and out of that right there, so we can see no more bubbles coming out. And we did get a little bubble, tracing that bubble down. Well, we don't really want bubbles in the system is because these pumps can be damaged if they're not ran continuously with fluid in them. And so that was the concern, was that there was big pockets of air, and that's why the pumps are going bad. But I don't know. I never saw any debris in the pumps. I did take them apart. Still see a little bit of bubbles coming out there. Now once you feel pretty good that there's no more bubbles coming, what we're going to do is turn off the bypass switch. And then with that turned off, we'll go ahead and turn those off. Now I can actually turn the switch back on again. So then the pumps are running. I didn't hear any burping. They're quite quiet. And now this is isolated from here. Now before we fire up the system, it's probably best that we fill up the surge tank. And Newmar, for whatever reason, decided that the engine compartment was the right place for a surge tank. The owners have already done this for me, and they added brand new fluid. This is the cold level. If we add it to the hot level, it'll overflow once we turn on the Oasis. So I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to turn off the bypass switch. And I'm going to have the owner turn the Oasis on. We'll fire the system up and make sure there's no leaks and it's operating. Could I get you to go ahead and fire up the Oasis? The cool thing about the Oasis, you can see the flame through the window right there. Oasis is from International Thermal Research. They actually built the hurricane system too that a lot of Winnebagos and Beaver and Safari coaches used. Sorry, it doesn't normally sound that bad. Somebody just decided to put an extra cover against it. Alright, so that's going to warm up those red lines that run through those heater hoses as supply over to here. This is the heat exchanger that makes domestic hot water. So the hot water or the cold water goes in on the left side, out on the right side. I think. Yeah, hot. There you go. And then down here is a tempering valve that mixes cold water with hot water so that it's not way too hot. So if your Oasis system isn't making really hot water, your tempering or anti-scalding valve might be bad, or you might have to adjust that knob just a little bit if you want a little bit hotter. But I never told you to do that. If you hurt yourself, that's your fault. So now with the diesel burner running, I'm going to go ahead and flip the pumps back on again. All right. And so the hot water is going to flow from here, or the hot transfer fluid will flow from here on the supply side to the pump, and then up here past those check valves. And if it's warm on this side above, that means those pumps are pumping, and then eventually they'll return over on the sides here. So that already feels warm. That is already feeling warm. So I haven't told the zones to turn on the fans on the heat exchangers yet. I'm just making sure that the pumps are actually pumping. Over here is what's called the summer loop. During the summer, you're generally not calling for radiant heat. And so if you want domestic hot water, and those weren't running to circulate water through the heat exchanger, it would turn on to circulate water through the heat exchanger there. That's the summer loop. If that one goes out, you can theoretically turn on the bypass switch like I just did to turn those pumps on, which would put antifreeze or the hot transfer fluid through the heat exchanger and make hot water for you. But this owner did that, but because this pump was bad and that pump was bad, eventually this one went bad, and so that wasn't working anymore. So he didn't have hot water. So they went ahead and replaced the pumps themselves. They just asked for my advice on what to do why the water pumps or why the circulating pumps were going bad. I took their pumps apart. I didn't see any debris in there, but there was some concern because this was the original fluid that maybe the fluid was bad, causing problems. But these are the newer updated systems or updated pumps. The old ones would have had mounts that you could have clamped onto. Now if you decide to do this on your own, you might look and notice how expensive the lime green transfer fluid is now at this point from Century Fluid, I guess. The pink stuff will work just fine too. I think a lot of RV parts suppliers have switched over to just carrying the red stuff because the yellow stuff just got crazy expensive. And doing this method, you will waste at least a gallon or two doing the crossover. So it's your choice what you want to stick with. The yellow is easier to see through, whereas the red is cheaper and easier to find. And also why that is still heating up. It does look like it's coming up the temperature. I can see it pushing out any air that was in this line into the bottle right there. For what it's worth, I think Newmar made a bad mistake putting the surge tank right here. It should have been right next to the Oasis system in the basement. This is not the original one. It's in the engine compartment, so it gets very hot back here, but also it's exposed to a UV light pretty easily through the engine here, or the engine door. Also, that's an awful lot of tubing to have to run all the way into the basement just for a surge tank. So I think it's a bad idea. I think Newmar should change that idea. Getting those bubbles out. So the Oasis just shut off. And so the temperature coming in on these lines on the side. Ooh. They're pretty hot. I can't hold my hand there much longer. About 180 degrees. So that means the water could technically come out about 180 degrees, which is why you got that tempering valve so that it doesn't. You can see that hot transfer fluid is going up. And you can see my hand right there, it's hot. And my hand on the other one. Ooh, that's too hot to hold. Okay. So I think it's safe to say this job is done. I just have to clean up. Now, even though that looks a little bit nasty, I wouldn't say there was anything wrong with it. We didn't notice any sludge, no debris, and it's really just a mixture of yellow and red or green and pink. Otherwise, I wouldn't have recommended it, other than they were having such problems with air or those circulation pumps going bad. I'm not sure how vital it is to do this as a routine maintenance, mostly as a maybe 15 years, 20 years is what I would probably guess. I don't think I've ever done it on mine, and mine's 20 years old. Now the owner swears they'll put this panel back together because they took it apart. So I just have to disconnect my hoses and put these caps back on. Again, they don't have to be snugged super tight. The valve's doing most of the work, so don't make them super tight for the next guy. Done. So what I'm going to do one last time is turn off that bypass switch on the side. And then I'm going to have the owners turn the thermostats on to turn those heat exchangers on inside. It's a nice, pleasant 72-degree day here, so it won't be too bad for them inside. I understand their dogs love to sit by the heater and warm up when it is on. It's kind of adorable. But we'll let that switch on, make sure that system's working. Then I'll button up and I'll be done. All right, well, those pumps just turn back on again. Do you mind if I come inside? Come in? All right, let me scooch past you there. Ooh, that's hot air coming out. You like that hot air? Ooh, hot air coming out there. Down in here. It's nice hot air coming out there. And of course, the first problem was we didn't have heat in the bedroom, right? In the rear bathroom.
Yeah, these two.
Yeah, the pumps are a lot quieter now.
Quieter? Does anybody need to do it in the future? Hopefully this video makes a lot more sense. It's not really a how-to, but it is a little bit of a how-to. But do be careful if you do it yourself. I don't want you to cause any damage to your Oasis system. But there is a lot to go with it. Just make sure you have enough coolant to finish the job before you start it.
But thanks a lot for watching, guys. We are filled back here. Got rid of the air bubbles. System is hot and we're right about there. So we'll add it to the hot line. We'll be done. That was quite the ordeal. And all you have to do is plan ahead and it'll be simple. It's a lie, you're bad boys, aren't you?